Hi, everybody. Steve Snyder here, artistic director with the Twin Cities Film Fest. And I'm thrilled to be joined today by Ryan Busch, director photography, R Water. Thanks for joining us, Ryan, for a post-film chat.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me. It's been a fun ride so far
I'm
in
kind of
this
sad that
crazy
we're,
time, in this crazy, weird
oh my
filmmaking.
God.
Yes.
I'm kind of sad that we're not all in a theater talking with a crowd. This is how it would normally happen. But I guess it's still, we're making the best of what we got.
Yeah, and it's almost, as a first time, film festival entry for myself, it almost doesn't, like, it feels like it's actually happening, but it almost like doesn't. So,
Well, this is a challenge. Yeah. How do we? I mean, what's interesting is we've had a wider reach than ever before as an organization, but we've just missed a little bit of that in person magic. But it's also led to kind of some interesting moments where we've heard that by having screenings available all day round, all week round, more people have been able to access more things because
mhm.
of they don't need to make it to the theater by a certain time. But let's talk about our water. I mean, I remember when it came in as a submission, and I guess everyone has to bring their own autobiography to discussing these things. My happy place is up on Lake Superior. I think about when I went with classmates from the University of Minnesota, we'd always go up to Lutzen on Lake Superior. I think of it as um, one of my happy places. And we'd go up in the summer, we'd go up in the fall, we'd go up in the dead of winter when you had ice crashing against the rocks. I mean, Lake Superior to me, it's a big part of my life. And how firmly I felt connected to this film in taking this journey. Um, I mean, maybe we could just take a few steps back about how the project came about, how the trip came about. I mean, and when did you decide it was going to be worth trying to capture the full arc?
Yeah, so I would say back in 2017, we would kind of all four of us have been, sea kayak guides along Pictured Rocks in Munising, Michigan. And there was just like one day where we were hanging around the pool table and, talking about like what's next. And Drew was just like, yeah, like I've always had paddling around Lake Superior, like on my list on things that I wanted to do on his computer. And I thought of that and it just like, okay, so let's do it. Like, why not? Like, I'm about to graduate college. Drew's graduated. We're kind of all in this kind of weird, like fuzzy life hiccup to where like, what's next? So I pursued it and I got everyone motivated and pumped up about the whole idea and accomplishment and uh, mission, I guess. And that's when it moved very, very slow for about 3 months because I think a lot of people thought we were young and not so committed. But then once we had like a few sponsorships like back us up, and after long, long, endless days of just trying to persuade these sponsors to back us up, and then once I had a few, everyone just kind of was on board. And and then as a filmmaker, I graduated with a digital cinema degree from Northern in Marquette. And I was like, why not a better story to tell than this journey around the lake? And I think what we did successful though was we not only showcased our story, and it was a trip about our experience around paddling around the biggest lake, freshwater lake in the world, but we also highlighted these individuals that make that lake so special, and the Great Lakes in general. It's not just, it's everyone that makes it home. And so that's, yeah.
No, because it becomes about a community and it becomes about, an area that people are protecting and an area, maybe we could talk about the actual production of the film. Because when we talk about director of photography, and I'm thinking, this is part of what I loved about the movie, when it really was kind of viscerally exciting and involving and immersive. You can tell we're out there on the water, with
Yeah.
you. Like, it's not just trying to reconstruct things. It's not just trying to describe things from afar. You're in the periods of kind of discovery and kind of navigating the elements. And that's so much of what Lake Superior is, like this living force, like it's we're not just in this for sightseeing. We're into being, like, participating in this environment. And it's clear from the outset that you're very committed, in watching the film. You're committed in putting us there. And so from the outset, it's clear, like, we're going to be with you, by your side the whole way, and we're going to find a way to make it work. But can you talk about the challenges of actually then executing on that vision? I mean,
Yeah.
it can't be the easiest way to film a movie.
No, so our kayaks, so to break it down, let's start and talk about the kayaks in general. They're 17-foot long sea kayaks, and we could store actually a significant amount of gear. I mean, obviously not truckloads, but more than one would think. And so what I was carrying with me was, I had a Pelican, small little, so I was running with the GH5 micro four thirds camera. I had two lenses. I had a rechargeable big battery that I was using solar, and I would lay these rollable, flexible solar panels when the sun was bright and the waves weren't choppy, and I could charge this battery, which then could charge everything else. And we were very spoiled on power because of how minimal my setup was. And
And did you look out with sunlight? It sounded like you're at the mercy of how much sunlight you're going to get.
so, sorry?
No. And so did you luck out on sunlight? Are you a little bit at the mercy of, like, how many clouds is there going to be on a certain day for recharging?
So I could go into specifics of that, but it was mostly sunny the entire time. But obviously we had like a 10-day stretch where it was, zero cloud, zero visibility, clouds, foggy, and the availability of the charge was minimal, and I couldn't film. I couldn't, we were mainly recharging our GPS unit at the time. That was the most, that was the most important thing. The camera was just a luxury. But our kayaks were 22 inches wide. I was in a Pelican case. My camera was always in my lap. It was always accessible. But all my electronics were double. It was they were either hard shell, dry containers, but then that might be in a dry bag. So everything was always double proof. So it would never get wet. And somehow I pulled out of there with, zero corroded files. All my footage was backed up on this little external hard drive that I was dumping footage and then, formatting my cards, and somehow I pulled it off.
And I'm sure part of the big challenge here is, how do you get back with all this footage? I mean, how much raw footage did you have from the shoot? Do you remember?
That's a hard one. At the top of my head right now, I always like to say, like, at least 400 to 500 hours of footage. Something
So
like that.
yeah, that's crazy. So how do
But
you even?
like a lot of that too was a lot of that too was maybe like, we had two GoPros, and I would give the two GoPros off to the guys, and they might be recording for like a half hour or an hour on accident. And so that's kind of where a lot of GoPro footage, and I may be over exaggerating on the hours, but it was a lot. And so
I can believe it with that many days. I mean, yeah.
102 days. Yeah. And we were filming every day for the most part. So
Can you tell me about what it would take then to structure the film when you come back and you're like, we got to start from zero. We got to try to make it interesting. I mean, I bet you had to go back and watch all the footage before then you even started deciding what to pull out and how to maintain some variety and some, bring some texture to the film. Like, you don't just want it looking the same each time, or how do you decide when to jump ahead to some of the more dramatic, moments on the water? Can you just tell me what that process was like?
yeah, so that was challenging because, like any other shoot, I think that we are on ground, and we're shooting day to day. We're able to back up our drives on a consistent basis. We can organize. All the organizing was done at the very end. So when we were back on land, the trip was complete, and so that was a long time to process, but also a good time to reflect on how to kind of piece the story together. But it wasn't until I was able to get my buddy Cole Steffel, our editor, to kind of, I just wanted an outside perspective. And I was recommended that by a handful of individuals and talking to my boss. And so I think he was a good person to kind of at least give us a good general outline of like what his vision was. Also, us, we wanted the story to resemble of what we wanted as well, but having that outside perspective and editor, I think, is super helpful in any documentary, because you just spend so much time with it, and you kind of lose track of like what's what, and bringing fresh eyes is a huge help.
Can you just tell me, I'm curious, what surprised you most in terms of maybe what he brought to his original, I don't know if he put together kind of like an outline or an initial kind of roster on things that stood out to him from some of the story or some of the selects, but do you remember maybe what surprised you most that he either found more interesting than you thought it might be, or things he was recommending cutting that you thought were essential? I'm sure there must have been some creative tension there.
Yeah, definitely a little. There's always creative tension. I think I'm trying to think. This was, I mean, it's still kind of a while. I mean, this is about 9 months ago now, or a year ago now.
So it might be hard to remember specifics in the in the negotiation.
Yeah, okay. So I guess the one creative tension that I had was I knew like mentally like I wanted all the footage to be in order, and obviously if you're looking at one thing like, oh, there's a rock formation or a lake shore, it's like that's like previous ago, like I knew someone would recognize it and be like, that's not Canada, or like that's not Minnesota, like. And it was like, even though no one else, even though like 99% of the people wouldn't know, there might be that one person or one kayaker, canoe, boat, or sailor that would be like, no, that's Isle Royale. That's it's just those small change. I was just like, it's just like it just sunk, and unfortunately with me, I was like, now we gotta, yeah, I don't know. So that was fun. It was fun, but that's one specific.
In
But
which
everything
route?
else was pretty straightforward, though.
So who won out? Did you end up doing the thing where you went back?
No, I made sure everything was in order. Like, it just would have bugged me.
Oh, totally. Well, and so much of this is about come experience this place.
Yeah.
But then to cut up and rearrange and misrepresent the place seems. And I think most people don't realize how much in documentaries, how much in, even in like news documentaries and an interview where you're interviewing someone. I mean, there's all the time where you're using a quick shot of the person to cover up the fact that like you're going to make an edit to the dialogue. So you cut to their reaction shot, but they might be reacting to something totally different later in the interview. Exactly. There's a lot of these, magic tricks that happen. But that's interesting that you were very committed to, like, I want this to be authentic.
Yeah, that was, and we didn't want it too. Drew Etling. So he was my, I call him my EP, my executive producer. He had a lot of say into the project, and the rest of the guys too, but more so Drew. And he didn't want it, and I completely agreed with him. He didn't want it too overly edited, or like, if the shots had some like kind of weird shakiness to it or whatever, like that's the nature of it. That was the time, and there was the circumstances that I was in, like, and filming like, oh, let me undo my spray skirt, quickly get my, camera that's not on a gimbal, on the fancy gimbal. Everything's handheld and raw. And like, I had a small little Manfrotto tripod that I used for interviews, and Rode shotgun mic, and that was it. And, luckily today with our technology and our, image processing systems that we have, it's like, you can't even tell, like, it looks like it was professionally shot on a big rig. But nowadays, unfortunately, we can make just as good as stuff as on our darn cell phones.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
But
and I'll tell you though, so not only, technically it looks every bit professional, but your ability to be able to travel so light, and your ability to not be maybe weighed down by gear or be weighed down by a setup when you're interviewing someone, I think it leads to kind of an intimacy in the scope of the thing. It does feel like we're just like sitting in a kayak with you. And I think it might be shaky, or you know, when you're going through some of the crazy conditions. But it doesn't have that feel of like it has feel like you're really with me. And if I had tried to do it in a more advanced way, I wouldn't be able to like bring this boat. We'd have to be in a bigger boat, and I maybe wouldn't have been able to come out here or even come out on this day. And it has a feeling of I mean, the term I keep coming back to is sort of a visceral, like it feels like you're part of the journey. And I think that's what really made the film work for me, that it felt like, I'm like, how far are we going to take this concept of come along on the ride? And the answer is the whole way. Like we're out on the water together,
Yeah.
and we're going to meet these people together. And all the people, you know, all the people seem very transparent, you know, seem very open. And I heard you take a snapshot. Sorry.
Yeah, I had to. Sorry.
Um, you know, because of the gear that's being used, it has a feeling of people are very kind of intimate and unassuming, and you know, because you're not showing up with maybe 5 cameras and a whole crew. Like, here, I'm just here to talk to you. I just want to like hear from you. And so I'm curious. You know, sometimes it's a little bit of like form and function. Like, I think you going with the setup you had made it just more approachable, which made it more enjoyable for me. Like it had less you know, it didn't have the artifice. I feel like I'm repeating myself now, but you know, it
Yeah.
seemed like you were going for the
No,
authenticity.
I would say, yeah, we definitely were, and thank you for that. And I would say the one thing I wish I would have done differently. There's one thing, and a lot of people kind of not chewed me out for it. They just kind of asked. Is I've always been not so, you know, I wish I'd done, I mean, I definitely set up a few tripods of myself, what's happened, what are we doing next type of deal. But I think I wish I would have done more of that with myself, because you don't get kind of, people wish they saw me, and now we're getting this. Okay, now we're good.
Yeah, I think
A little logo saying our connection was unstable.
okay. So maybe that's on your end then. Well, let's just give it a second to catch up. Can you hear me right now?
I can, yeah, we're fluid.
Okay, so I just feel like maybe it's catching up. So let's just give it 1 second, because sometimes it'll get glitchy, but then it'll catch up.
Yeah.
And it feels like we're coming back now. And so I did lose part of your answer. I mean, just tell me the one thing you wish you had done differently.
The one thing I wish I would have done differently in the project was capture a little bit more of my emotion and do a little bit more self-reflection of where we are. I mean, of course, I did it a few times, and we showcased it in the film a few times, and but I wish I had done that a little bit more as the filmmaker. I was just, a lot of these moments, I was so caught up in just getting a certain part of the lakeshore. I was getting someone's reaction, and as a first, learned something, and that definitely should have been a little bit more showcased, I think. But next project, I guess. But some people, aka family members, wish they saw me more on the screen.
Interesting.
I guess where I'm getting at.
Yeah. And did you feel like it was, you know, people say it's a much different thing to experience something versus try to film something, photograph something, capture something through a screen, that you're a little bit at a remove. I mean, do you think you sacrificed a little bit of your experiencing of this trip and trying to capture the trip? Like, do you ever think back, like, did you miss out on a little bit of the fun of just going out because maybe you were worried about, like, are you getting the shot right?
Yeah, all the time. And that's been all. So there was, like, so for example, there's, obviously I would never, not obviously, but okay, so I'll start over there, editor. And so, wait, can you repeat that question again, just so I have a good sense? You said which?
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
I
Just
I think
you know, it's a very different thing to kind of live something versus capture something. I mean, this is always what sometimes I'm at like tourist locations, but people are taking selfies of themselves, and I'm like, maybe you should just try to like enjoy being here, like, because you're so worried about getting your selfie right. And so I'm just wondering, out on a lake, like, I don't know. Do you feel like there was a little bit of a trade-off and like you're going to get to experience it a little less because you're trying to capture it?
Yeah, so I think that's when I thanked the rain, and because I would never take out my camera really unless it was a GoPro if it was raining. So I think that's when I helped. You know, maybe would have just put the GoPro, on my kayak, and I just plus record and I just would paddle, and that's great. But definitely, there was a lot of moments. Like for example, I would be like, "Hold up, guys! Like, hold up! Like, I want to get this like really cool dynamic shot of us, paddling out in the distance." And they'll look at me and they're like, "Okay, not again." Like, so they'll stop and I'll scurry up like a rock face or something, set up a tripod, do all this, do all that, get in our boats, and we all 4 or 3 paddle out. And then I would have to turn around, go back, and scurry up the rock, get my gear. Yeah, so there's a few of those, and those I actually wish I did a few more of those, but those moments took away from actually just the solitude and isolation in some of these places that we've were. But definitely, but yet again though, like I think I knew going into it that the camera was going to be a distraction. The camera was going to be in the way of experiencing these moments, but at the same time, needs to happen to actors. I think I got a between footage and not using my camera. But so looking back, I got so much that I can go back and look at these individual moments too. So kind of takes me back.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, you cut out just for a tiny bit, but then we came back. The upside of all this is you have a record of your trip. You can remember it forever.
Yep.
And so I'm just curious, what's next for the film, and what's next for you? I mean, if people are looking to support the film, we spend a lot of time at the festival telling people like it matters a lot if you can go to Facebook and leave a review, if you can share it with your community, if you can. I mean, can you tell me what's next for the project, and then also for you beyond this project?
Hmm. Yeah. So I guess what's next for the film? So there was the Fresh Coast. So what's next for the film? We have the Fresh Coast Film Festival coming up, hopefully in October. I know they canceled this year due to you know restrictions and COVID and whatnot, and they really wanted that it's a small festival, so they wanted that in-person thing. So that's, I think, the next festival. And we also are in the Green
Congrats.
Bay Film
Oh, Green
Festival as
Bay.
well
Nice, nice,
next
nice.
year. And other than that, nothing too much planned. I do want to get it integrated and in front of school groups. So if anyone out there has any ideas how to best move forward with that, I know we have a few teachers reaching out wanting to show the film to their elementary or middle school students. Definitely that target audience, but even high schoolers as well. But I think that will give students a chance to understand and realize of what you can do with not that much equipment, or but yet again be safe, and just general awareness for love and passion for the Great Lakes. And I personally think the reason why we're so attached to these Great Lakes is because what our bodies are like, 70% water anyway. So like we're already like magnetized to these huge bodies of water or just small streams. And that's why we love water, because we, rely on it day to day and day out. And, but for what's next for me, I work for Great Lakes Outreach Media, like I told you earlier, Steve, and we do a lot of science and research outreach for these groups and organizations that really need the visual and representation support for what they're doing, so we can move forward and better improve the health of the Great Lakes. And we just got or last summer we just shot and produced a film called The Erie Situation. It's about the harmful algae in Lake Erie, in the Erie Basin. So that's coming here soon, I think early of next year, so 2021. We have a editor who's editing it for her thesis at the American University in DC. So yeah, we're moving forward, and that's like another case where I was telling you, Steve, probably gonna edit this out, but David wanted that external. My boss David wanted that external editor perspective, and he couldn't look at it anymore. We have an out-house editor, and he's just doing it for budget and purposes, and so yeah. But so that's where we're moving forward, making educational pieces for the science and research community within the Great Lakes Basin.
That's great. And where, if people are looking to help spread word about the film, or have thoughts on educational bookings, could you just give the best? Is Facebook the best place? Do you have a website for the film? What's the best place to go?
No, yeah, I think the best place would be either to just go to our website. It's forthewater.com, and just we have a contact page on there, so you can definitely, that's the best way to reach us.
And you should just point right up. It's over your shoulder. It's perfect. For the water.
Yeah, right there, For the Water.
Boom.
Yeah, so go to forthewater.com. It's FOUR because there's 4 of us, remember? And all the information about our trip and contact information can be found on our site.
This is great. Congrats on the additional festival pickup. I do think it's a great educational document as well. And I know it really resonated with our audiences at the core festival at our primary festival in October. And it's great to have it as part of this encore booking. So just want to thank you for everything, Ryan. Thanks for chatting.
Hey, thanks, Steve, and thanks Bill and everyone at the Twin Cities for including our film in these kind of ongoing screenings. This is great. Wish obviously it could have been in person, but maybe next year and next film. So
next film, next
it's been
time.
an honor.
Yes, we're gonna have this whole crew of like alumni from TCFF that we're gonna meet in years to come. It's gonna be crazy. Anyway, thank you so much, Ryan.
Good.